Dear everyone, everybody, everywhere, whenever you are, wherever you are, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good day, happy month, happy moon, happy sun, happy. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today we are going to talk about a very difficult, interesting, specialized subject, which is what will happen after natural disaster and armed conflict. Sometimes such a natural disaster could be expected, and such armed conflict could be expected. Okay? Or sometimes it might not be expected. Maybe sometime eruption happening, a war happen between two communities or two countries. Okay? Or actually a natural disaster happened first time in a certain area. Okay. Let us talk today about how can we be prepared in a place where we are expected to have natural disaster every year or every other year or every few years. Or we have a conflict with our neighbors every other year, so we are actually expecting to have these humanitarian disasters. Okay? What will we do? What we have to do during that time? Okay? First of all, in these two conflicts, which could be expected because of the armed conflict or because of the natural disaster which is repeated, we have to do the following. The following are, we should have in our policy to try to build a policy how to deal with such armed conflicts as well as with such natural or repeated natural disasters. Number one, in our policy, we have to create, since we are a country which is a disaster-born country, or we have a continuous conflict with our neighbors. Okay? So what to do in the structure of the country? Either we should have as a ministry deal only with humanitarian and disaster response, or we have an independent department or independent committee, national committee, dealing with this humanitarian response, whether it's coming from natural disaster or coming from these armed conflicts. This is number one. Either a ministry or a department, or a department or a committee. Number two, inside every ministry, we should have a specialized department or desk dealing with this kind of natural disaster or humanitarian response coming because of the armed conflict. And the government or the state has to equip such a department on the national level and on the ministerial level with necessary equipment to deal with both post-conflict, during conflict, or natural disaster, with cars, ambulances, everything, every equipment. This is number two on this. Number three, we should have what we call, to create what we call early warning system, independent early warning system to forecast that something will be happening in this area because of the climate change, because of the conflict, the political problems, and. So early warning system. Number four, we should have in our budget every year a percentage of how to deal with such a conflict, humanitarian response based on armed conflict, or humanitarian response based on natural disaster, between 5 to 7% of the national budget. Number five, at the level of every municipality, okay, we should have a small department or a desk, okay, to deal with such disaster on the residential area. Why? Because we need to protect the citizen during the disaster. Why? Because during that time, maybe a lot of outlaws, ringleaders, bad guys, thugs could go and steal the houses because the people have left, or could go and attack the woman because the men are dead, whatever it is. This happened when I was in Turkey this year after the earthquake on the 6th of February in Antakya. I went with some colleagues to Antakya on the 14th, I think, or 12th of February, and we found that Antakya was an empty city, a city of ghosts or a city of dead. Nobody was there. All the houses are empty. Then we started to see that actually some of those thugs went to these houses and these buildings and started to steal what's left there. Then we started to have reports about such individual bad people started to actually steal what is carried by the people who are left Antakya. So the military went in as well as the security went in to stop that. Last year, brothers and sisters, colleagues and friends, the world have seen 6 disasters in 7 locations. That's why a very memorable year. Started with Turkey and Syria, North Syria, in February 6. Then the armed conflict in Sudan, 15th of April last year, between those Janjaweed or against the National Army. Then went from there to Morocco, earthquake. And from Morocco, earthquake, there was another storm affected Derna in northeast Libya. Then after that, there was another earthquake in Afghanistan on 7th of October. After that, it's actually 7th of October, actually conflict in Gaza. So 6 disasters, 2 are armed conflicts, and 4 were actually natural disasters affected the world last year, claimed life of thousands and thousands of thousands. During that time, we have to be very, very careful how to deal with that during or before. Now I'm talking about how to be prepared before it happens if we knew that our country or our area is disaster born, or there's a conflict at the border between us and our neighbors. At that time, we have to be preparing all what I'm talking about. Okay? So coming back to the preparedness is number 6 or 7 for the preparedness. We have to utilize the resources of every local civil society organization, most importantly the religious ones, such as mosques, temples, as well as churches. Why I'm mentioning it heavily? Because of the increased number of volunteers who come every day to pray in these worshiping places. Such volunteers have high moral values. I have to include them in my voluntary system. Number 2, in dealing with the religious institution, is they have many buildings which can, and many halls which can accommodate the refugees or the displaced people. Number 3, with regarding the religious institution, people, when they go to this institution, trust the leadership because they think that the leadership is honest in these ones. So it could become a very good focal point for the people to meet around this institution. Number 4 is the number, the multiplicity or the diversity of the social activity that being done by such institution will actually let its people, its authority, its volunteers to know basic principles of how to deal with social needs and social work and how to create social impact. Number 5 is actually people trust this institution no matter what, whether I am a Hindu or I am a Sikh or I am a Rastafari or I am a Christian or I am a Muslim or I am a Jew. I trust my religious institution. Okay, so with this, that's why I included in the preparedness the principle of getting help or including the religious institution. On the local or national level, also have to create coordinating committees on the level of the residential area, the village, the town, the city, the district, and the national level. And this kind of communication system or coordination system has to be dealing and communicating and coordinating with the security department as well as the related department in the military. Okay, so this kind of coordination is a compelling necessity without which the impact of disaster, whether from the conflict, armed conflict, or from the natural disaster, will be more and more devastating. Okay. Point after that of the preparedness, we have to keep training, building the capacity of the people working in the civil society organization, because we might have the ministerial departments or central authority, but we might have thousands or tens of thousands of civil society organizations which they should help us in this. That's why we have to have in our program, to actually training the people working in civil society organizations. Then the state itself have to spread the culture of volunteerism and have to make the volunteerism as a subject in the syllabus to be taught theoretically and operationally to the young kids from the primary, secondary, universities, and others, to tell them engage and to train the volunteers. The state also should build warehouses on the district level, on the town level, on the city level, on the village level, and on the residential area level. Why? Because we should put in these warehouses the aid material like tents, blankets, jerrycan, and all these kind of things. And we don't wait till the disaster happens to look for tents or to look for blankets or to look for some non-food items that we can help the people. Then, as I mentioned earlier, the 5 to 7% of the budget should be allocated to the disaster. People might say that's too much. Okay, we can decrease it. Depends on what we can spend, and depends on how often we receive. We have this kind of conflict. If we did not spend such a percentage, we might actually keep it for the following year. So the budget of maybe 2023 might actually be, which we have not spent in 2023, we can keep it for the budget of 2024 and on. But we do not actually give it to another department. Okay, and regarding to the natural disasters such as earthquake, volcano, flooding, storm, and others, we have to know the area which is affected by this disaster and prevent people from living there or building their houses in this area. If there is a flooding, we should, and we knew that this is happening every year or every other year or every few years, we should not build any buildings, whether actually residential or commercial or industrial, in such an area. or should not build in an earthquake or volcano area, near the volcano, actually building in this area. So if we knew that, we have actually to make it a law that we should not actually let people to live in this area. These are what we call how to be prepared to respond to disaster in areas where we expected to see such a disaster, natural disaster, every few years, or there's a conflict in the border with other countries. So we should be also preparing ourselves how to deal with the influx of internally displaced people or the influx of refugees who are going out. Here, as a practical example, don't ever think, brothers and sisters, colleagues, friends, that you give the money today and tomorrow we'll build the house. No, forget it. Absolutely, this is nonsense. I tell you what, if I give the money on the 1st of January 2024, I expect what? I expect the delivery of the food material within weeks. It depends on the area. The clothes material within weeks or maybe months. But I don't expect rebuilding the houses within months. I was visiting Pakistan last year in October. The Pakistan flood was in 2022. And when I went to Sindh area last year in October 2023, after 1 year, still more than 90% of the houses has not been built. So when you talk about houses and you give me the money to spend, don't ask me about building the house before 1 year or at the end of the first year. And not only that, in Pakistan, the government has been supported by billions of dollars given to them by World Bank, by other big donors. And still, people are actually reallocating because it's a government. It talks about 1 million houses. It's not like an organization who is dealing with 10,000 or 20,000 houses. When I went there, Islamic Relief within 1 year, they built about 15, I can't remember how many, 15 or 40,000 houses. 15,000 or 50,000 houses. But they can't be able to build the 40,000 houses in 1 year. So if you talk about food, delivering clothes, delivering medical equipment, it could be in weeks, but not building a house in weeks or months. It takes more than that. Thank you very much. And this was my first part of responding to this difficult subject. My second part will be about what to do when this disaster affects area which has not been expected to have it. So I'll meet you next week or maybe in whatever time to explain to us how to deal with unexpected disasters, whether it's conflict, armed conflict, or whether it's natural disaster. Thank you.